in case you didn't realize why you're here to learn a little bit about Saboteur today. A game we're very proud of right now at the studio. We're kind of moving into the final legs of the development of it, but we're very proud of this game and we're excited to get it out in everybody's hands later this year. So because some people I've told about this, some people I haven't, but just to bring everybody up to the same speed here, I figured we'd start off by starting really at the beginning of how we developed this game and literally start at the origin story. So the origin story of the Saboteur goes that Andrew Goldman, who's one of the co-founders of Pandemic Studios, he was on an international flight, and on that flight he read about these 3 drivers for the French Bugatti racing team. One of those drivers in particular was a Grand Prix champion. He's a half English, half French Grand Prix champion, William Grover Williams. It really caught Andrew's attention. And so what happened was when the Nazis occupied France, William Grover Williams fled the country and went back to England. And from there he was recruited by Winston Churchill's British SOE and was then reinserted and Churchill had this charge of setting Europe ablaze was his mantra. And so then William Grover Williams was reinserted back into France and actually became a saboteur and worked with the French resistance along the way. And so he's like, this is a really cool idea. We could leverage off of the technology we made, or not technology, but the ideas that we learned from developing the Mercenaries game, setting the world in this Nazi-occupied Paris and France, versus this daredevil race car driver. This is really actually an awesome game idea. And so we started with that as kind of a piece of it. And so Andrew came back and he pitched this idea at this room actually across from there. But when he pitched it, literally you could hear people's eyes rolling in the room. It was like, people were like, really? We've had enough World War II games. There's so many World War II games out there. Some really great games, but we've played them all, and it was really time for something new. And it's something we felt that the message boards were really kind of reflecting, and we really took all this into heart. But at the same time, William Grover Williams is a real larger-than-life hero, and it was a really cool, inspirational character to start building off of. He was he's a legendary race car driver, Grand Prix champion, and he became a saboteur. It's almost too good to be true. It's like it sounds even awkward on paper. So we took that to heart, and then the idea was also like, wow, Paris. Paris is this amazing city. It has this beautiful architecture, amazing monuments. It has this, this well-known lifestyle and stuff. And it was also going to be the first time that a game would be set inside of occupied Paris. So we took that in, and we also were like, wow, this is also, it's not your traditional World War II soldier story. This is something a little more intimate and a little more personal. And the idea of a race car driver becoming a saboteur really opened up to have a lot of different mechanics. The race car drivers of this era were really like crazy daredevils. And so we took that and really started designing the game. From the get-go, our team is largely very cinematically inspired. Movies like Indiana Jones, we consider probably one of the greatest action films ever made, and really epic moments in it. The Train was another big influence on us. The John Frankenheimer movie, it's a classic movie, and it's about this guy who's a train conductor who doesn't really actually take up the cause of fighting the Nazis until somebody as close to him is killed. And so we took that really into heart, and it's actually like we wanted that kind of personal story inside of this World War II backdrop. Also, if you've seen the visuals of the game, it's very obvious that we're very noir inspired, like classics like The Third Man or the very modern Sin City. It's very gritty, harsh undertones, sexual themes inside of the game, all inside of this World War II backdrop. And so from there, we decided we wanted to make more of the fantasy of the war. It's not a historically accurate game. We wanted to take references from history, but go big and over the top. And what is that fantasy of the war inside of our heads? Because normally your World War II games are about this guy. You're this nameless, faceless soldier inside of the war. You don't really know anything about the character, and you're just fighting through the game. And so for us, it was about making an iconic hero. We wanted that Indiana Jones type character. Who's that hero that we all want to be in our hearts? So again, referencing Indiana Jones, somebody that fought Nazis, but for personal reasons, not for political reasons. Somebody who can get beat up and get his ass kicked and laugh in the face of danger. It's something we also really wanted in the personality of our hero. Not, we didn't want him brooding and miserable through the entire game. And also that classically cool action hero. Steve McQueen is probably one of the coolest men that's ever walked the face of this planet, and he's definitely got a little bit of him inside of our character, Sean Devlin. We really rolled a lot of the ideas from these heroes into our hero, Sean. So he's a reluctant hero. He's an Irishman without a home or a side in the war. This is a personal motivation, personal story for him. He's a daredevil race car driver, lives life with his pedal to the floor, and that really allows him to take any challenge on. It allows him to climb things. It allows him to be this big, over-the-top action hero. He's a classic rebel. He smokes, he drinks, he's got away with women. Somebody says the wrong thing to him, he meets it with a fist. He's also a relatable character. He starts off the game very much as an everyman. He doesn't start off as this action hero. He becomes this action hero as you play through the game. And for me, he's a drinking buddy. He's the guy that you can count on. He's got your back. If something goes down in a bar, he's the guy that you want on your side. So we started from there, and we're like, but we wanted to give him very personal motivations in the world. Because again, typical World War II games, you play this guy. You're this soldier, you're a patriot, you're fighting for your country, you're shooting, you're killing everybody in sight. Things are blowing up around you. And we wanted some of these elements in the game for Sean, but we also wanted to make it very personal inside of this space. So what we did is we started by, again, making a very personal story. And first and foremost, the Saboteur is the origin short story of Sean Devlin going from a race car driver, becoming a Saboteur. And so we let the player play all of this. So basically what happens in our game is Sean goes over to Germany early in the game for a race before the war. And after the race, what starts off as like a prank against his rival driver, Dierker, goes horribly, horribly wrong. And eventually it leads to his best friend, Jules, getting killed. And at that point, Sean wants nothing more than this man, Kurt Dierker, dead. So that's where it really becomes a revenge story. It's not a political story. And so at that point, Sean will kick in any door in his way, work with the French resistance, and even reluctantly work with the British SOE to get towards his goals of killing Dierker. There's Paris, this beautiful city of lights, and it's famous for all these amazing monuments which really define the city right from the get-go. And so we actually scaled down an old map of Paris because we wanted to actually literally have every block in the game have content. So we have this scaled down map with all the major monuments, where they belong in the game, and then from there we built the world in between. And because of the way that the streets are laid out in Paris, literally and the way we built our buildings, is literally every block in our game is unique. And every block in it is filled with something to find, fight, or destroy. It's a very explorable world from the streets to the rooftops, and literally everything is filled with something to do. And so the other thing that Paris really gave us is this wonderful world of rooftops. And you can really look at Paris in these pictures and see why Paris inspired parkour. And we're like, wow, we really want that in the game. So we really wanted to represent the feeling of those this world of rooftops literally existing up there. Because we wanted Sean to be able to run and jump and climb all over the buildings. So the idea was, if it looks like you can climb it, you can climb it. So you can absolutely climb the Eiffel Tower in our game. And if you're like anybody on the dev team, the moment you do, you're going to jump off the Eiffel Tower. So, but wait, there's more. It's not just Paris. Our map actually goes from Paris up to the coast of Le Havre, into Germany as well. There's in the countryside, it's filled with these little villages and these giant Nazi-occupied chateaus. So there's literally a lot of space in the world. And literally all of them have something to find, fight, and destroy, literally everywhere inside of the world. So the other part of the game that is pretty critical is what we call the will to fight. And we were building Paris, and if you think about the fantasy of Paris, it's the Paris of Amelie. It's vibrant, it's colorful, it's wonderful. It is the city of light and love. And no matter how many enemies you put in the world, it wouldn't feel like this occupied city. We wanted to sell the feeling and the mood of the occupation. So in the Saboteur, black and white equals occupation. When you see black and white, it's a heavily occupied area. Sin City inspired, things like reds and the colors popping out into the environments to pull the player's attention. But when you play in the missions of the game and you do these big grand acts of defiance, color will literally bleed back out into the world. And what you're doing then is you're inspiring the people. You're not liberating the world. The world is still occupied by the Nazis, but you inspire the people. So things like farmers markets open, more people show up in the streets. And in these areas, if you start a fist fight against the Nazis, people will cheer you on. If you grab a gun and start shooting, resistance will show up and actually start fighting alongside of you, or actually fight back. And so you're inspiring the people. So this is where the gameplay of the will to fight comes. It's not just a visual gimmick in the game. It actually has gameplay ramifications in the game as well. So how does the Saboteur inspire these areas? And well, that happens in the big missions in the game. And so one of the fantasies of being a Saboteur isn't going in shooting everybody in the face. It is about what we call quiet in, loud out. And so the idea is you sneak in, you get up behind a Nazi, you break their neck, and then from there you take their uniform and use that as a tool to get into the heart of the Nazi base. And from there you do your final objective and planting a piece of sabotage. And what will happen then is the explosions go off, the alarms start blazing, and then it's really about pushing it to this loud out gameplay mentality. And then from there you're shooting your way through the Nazis, carving your way, grabbing a car, crashing the gate, and having high-speed chases through the streets. We wanted the game go from subtlety to like loud, big, over-the-top action. That being said, you don't have to play that game. It's up to the player. All of this is a tool for the player. The player can sneak if they want, or they can go shoot everybody in the face if they want. It's really up to the way the player wants to play the game. But you have to be careful when you play that way, because you can actually get Sean killed pretty easily. So the tools that we give to the players are what we call all kinds of action. They're literally tools for the player. So there's a lot of different ways to sneak. There's suspicion in the game for if you're acting out of place in the world. There's a lot of climbing elements in the game. There's big, epic, like dangerous jumps. There's brawling. There's shoot guns and grenades. There's resistance fight back zones where the resistance will actually fight back along your side and actually push back the enemy threat. And then there's what we call sweet jumps in the game, where you get to race around the world and get sweet jumps. And then there's also just high-speed chases. So there's a lot of different tools and big over-the-top action inside of the game as well. And literally all kinds of action in the game.